I've got to ask at least one question from Gary because he does so much for us. He wants you to explain just your side of the infamous Fairy Busker story.
Oh, yeah. I actually haven't talked about that, have I? Well, I was about to say I expect to get criminal charges for that eventually. I reckon the state will try something new with that too. They've got up to a year to charge me from the date of the event or the incident in question. So I expect to get some sort of criminal charge and hold me to that, because then when I get it, I can say, see, I told you so.
All on camera and recorded.
Well, from start to finish, and I'll be as quick as I can with this, we've just come from our rally, from our annual Australian flag Pride March. And we're heading back to Federation Square, my colleagues and I, to have lunch at a local pub there. And as I passed by the square area, the central square area, this character was standing there in a absurd-looking suit, a silver suit with a pink tie. And at this point, he looked like an entertainer. But he called out to me as I walked past. He said, "Hey there, big fella. Hey, you look like you got a lot of masculinity there. Can I have some? Can I have some of that masculinity?" And I said, "Hey," and I sort of turned around because I wasn't sure if he was talking to me or not. But he said, "Yeah, you, the big guy." He goes, "Come on, I'll fight you for it. I'll fight you for your masculinity. Come on." And I didn't really understand. I took a few steps towards him and I said, "Sorry, you want to fight me? You're talking to me, yeah?" And he goes, "Yeah, you see, this is what will happen, everyone. You'll be laying on the ground covered in blood because that's what masculinity gets you. That's all it's good for." And I thought, okay, he's making a passive-aggressive political statement. I said, all right, very good. So I turned around and continued to walk away. Walked towards the pub. About a minute later, he was screaming out to me again, "Hey, big fella, look, you're missing the show. You're missing the show." I turn around. He's taken his clothes off and he's wearing this mankini, this pink mankini, and there's 4 or 5-year-old kids standing around him, these families. And it left a very bad taste in my mouth, not only because he deliberately tried to sort of drag me into his show and, indirectly antagonize me, but these children were standing around seeing him in that absurd getup. And so I walked into the pub. I didn't decide immediately to go over there and intervene. But I walked into the pub and I told the boys about what I'd seen because they had already gone to the pub before me. And, they sort of encouraged me to go out there and say something to him. And so I said, "Oh, let's all go out there. We'll unplug his amp and we'll tell him to move on." Now, I think it's probably important to note that I wasn't as angry as I seem in the video. I think I'm the sort of person that when I portray even the slightest amount of emotion, I seem to be, much more intensely affected by that emotion than I really am. I was only mildly frustrated, but because I'm so physically imposing, I think I come across as a lot more frustrated than I really was. But if you watch the video from start to finish, I was accused of surrounding this guy and bullying him and threatening him. But actually, it was only me that approached him. Nobody else did. No, he was never surrounded at any point. And although I don't think I even raised my voice at him, I just said, "Mate, there's kids here. Cover up. Put some clothes on. You're not welcome here. Come on, take your stuff and get out of here." Now, he ran away from me screaming for the police. Okay. Now, I did ask him, so I said, "Are you a pedophile? Is that what you are?" Because it was really weird to dress that way in front of kids. And he's dancing to Prince music. Prince is a transgender artist, okay? And he wasn't wearing any underwear under that thing, and you could tell if you were there, believe me, it was pretty absurd. And now when you ask someone in a frustrated tone, "Are you a pedophile? Put some clothes on," and they run away screaming for the police, well, that sort of immediately sort of indicates a guilty conscience. And so I became a little more frustrated at that point. But I actually got contacted the day after this incident by a psychologist. She's a friend of mine, and she's a little bit soft on the left, so I thought she was going to have a go at me. But she actually said, "No, I was going to say that I've been dealing with a lot of victims of childhood abuse lately. And I wanted to say that the way that guy reacted to you approaching him is textbook the way someone with a repressed childhood trauma would act." She goes, "Now hear me out. Because you're so much bigger than this guy, okay, he's only a little fella and you're a big man, you're approaching him in an aggressive way, in a confronting way. You may have inadvertently forced him to relive a childhood experience where he was perhaps sexually assaulted." She goes, "The majority of homosexual people, our majority, I think it's over 60% of homosexual people were actually physically assaulted as children. And it's something like over 90% of transgenders." She goes, "It's especially true of transgender people." So she goes, "He was not just afraid of you, he was physically distressed, especially when the woman who came to his defense put her hands on him. He struggled out of her grip and then ran away." And she said, "That's a very unusual behavior for a grown man." She believes he's got some serious problems, and the mainstream media normalizing and enabling him to dance on the street like that. She said, I don't think that's an effective way for him to deal with whatever issue that he's harboring. So I actually feel for that guy. I probably should have done it better. I think I could have approached him with more tact. But then again, he could have responded with more tact. He could have said, look, mate, I'm a performer. You know, I have a permit. If you've got a problem, go to the police or speak to the council. You know, I do this all the time. If he said that to me, I would have, what could I say to that? Fine, no worries. I'll be on my way. But instead, he ran away screaming for the police. Okay, and so I think he could have handled it better and I could have handled it better, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm not apologising for it. I'm proud that I told that character to cover up, and I would encourage other people, if they see something similar, to start doing the same, because it's absurd and I don't think children should be exposed to that kind of thing. Now, just to wrap it up, I know I've talked about it for quite some time now, but I'm not actually against what this guy was doing, just against where he was doing it. Okay, if people want to do that kind of thing, I'm all for free will and, you know, that kind of thing, and freedom of expression. If he wants to rent out a hall and sell tickets to people who want to go and watch that stuff inside an event, fine, do it. But that's a Sunday afternoon in the middle of the day, in the middle of winter, mind you, bloody cold out there. And there's children standing around watching that, families that have to view that whether they like it or not. That's what I had a problem with. And I don't see how that's unreasonable.
I think that's a fine answer. And what I was thinking about that whole time is how detailed and how interesting that story actually is when you get the full picture and you don't just take the sound bites from the media. Because as I mentioned earlier, I really dislike media manipulation and omission of the truth and all that kind of thing. And they've come out and they had the headlines: Blair Cottrell, bad boy, far-right, mega Nazi, crazy boy, blah, 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 neck tattoos on his face, surrounds and attacks poor little gay man who was doing totally nothing wrong. I mean, you understand the narrative. And you get that out of them. And I instinctively know, oh, that's bullcrap. I mean, I saw the video, because the video that's online is after all the preamble. It's after what happened before. Like, you know, when you said, oh, he was yelling out at you, he said words to you. I didn't know that. That changes the story quite significantly from what the left was saying. See, I was under the impression that you were just walking past and you saw this guy dancing around naked on the street, like you said. And as you said right at the end, he should rent out a hall or go and do it in a private place, and that's totally fine. Just don't do it where there's kids around on a Sunday afternoon. It's a sexual act in a lot of ways. Like, he's dressed down, and I've looked at it and I was like, that's quite, it's a bit yuck. It shouldn't be where kids are, which is fair enough. So I thought it was just you going up and saying that, and I thought, you know what, he didn't have to. But, you know, who cares? It was fine. But then when you add in the first bit, I'm just like, you know what? He deserved it. Like, he deserved to get called out. And it's like, good on you. Like, really good on you. Because that guy should be
he dressed that way in order to invite a response or something. He was trying to antagonize in an indirect way, I believe. And a lot of people, like, what's funny is Neil Mitchell, the good bureaucrat from 3AW, he wanted me on, and I went onto his show, and he said, you're a homophobe. What gives you the right to tell this guy what he can and can't wear? You're a bad person, Blair Cottrell. But then all of his callers afterwards rang in and said they agreed with me.
Yeah, I heard that. I actually heard a lot of the callers as well.
What I find interesting, it's really interesting to hear that story. I saw the 47-second video clip. Like, I saw it for the first time today. And I don't know, like, a lot of the sort of explanations that you were giving about, like, the high ratio of sexual abuse for homosexuals and transgender people, and a number of the other things, like I understand those arguments already. And so I watched that video with a lot of those assumptions. And so I saw that going, yes. Again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your nose, but, like, it's the sort of thing that would have happened, like, maybe 30 or 40 years ago. Like, if a grown man was dressed like that in front of children, ordinary people would go up and say, hey, put some clothes on. What
that's right.
You're doing?
That's totally right.
What really upsets me is that there's been a complete inversion of morality. Like, what was once good is now evil, and what was once evil is now good. And so, yeah, you have, like, one of the most influential public radio people in Melbourne calling you a homophobe for that. where like in the past, like what you just did would just be patrolling, you know what I mean?
And let's just also say homophobe it's not an argument. And what I'm loving about the last few years is how much the fact that these insults, like, you know, I could see it years and years ago. It's like, oh, he's just kind of racist. So like, that's doesn't really mean anything. Oh, he's a homophobe. It's like, no, you're a homophobe. You're an idiot. Like, you know, that's my natural response. But most people, because in a debate, in a public debate, it's not about the person you're talking to. It's about the audience. So they can call you, oh, you're a homophobe, or you're a racist, or, you know, you don't like people from Mars because you don't like, you're an alienophobe, or whatever they want to call you. But it's how you react to that, firstly, and secondly, it's how the crowd sees that. And as that Neil Mitchell showed, it's like him calling you a homophobe. It's like it doesn't mean anything because it's not an argument, and it's not true either.
And furthermore, like it stirs something in ordinary people to actually see somebody brave enough to stand up to something like that, because the society that we live in now punishes people for like taking that approach.
Yeah, that's right.
Again, like I'm in an industry where, like, you know, I'm a musician, so I'm surrounded by lefties and homosexuals and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I work with them all the time. But like that sort of thing, like what you're describing and what I saw, like this grown man almost completely naked, dressed like Borat in front of children. It's like, no, you can't do that. And it goes against the grain of our society to do that. But it's something that I think most people feel that way and would want to do the same thing.
Something came into my mind as you were saying that too, when you said that, you know, when you suggested that it gives people courage and hope that there's someone out there that's actually standing up against this.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's part of the reason also why the media and these government bureaucrats come down so hard against me to silence me, because I believe I'm a bit of an initiator. Yeah. I sort of get a reward, almost like an emotional reward, from action. I need to be acting. I need to be taking some sort of action. And I think I'm a pioneer that is. They believe I could potentially normalize the things that they're worried about. They could mainstream them fast, and they don't want that. They want to make sure that when I do something, when I take that new step, they cover me up and say, this is not okay. Everyone, this is not okay. Don't start doing what he's doing. You know,